I used to think there was a point when the body simply stopped listening. No matter what you ate, how much you tried to rest, or the number of pills you swallowed, it just didn't matter anymore. My name is Edward. I'm 75 years old, and for most of my life I believed I was doing everything right. I walked every morning. I stayed away from sugar. I even switched from red meat to grilled chicken. Yet, somehow, every visit to the doctor ended with the same quiet sigh. Your cholesterol is still too high, Edward. We'll have to adjust your medication again. The words started to sound like a sentence I'd never escape. At first, I took it with calm resignation. A pill for the morning, another for the evening, and a long list of foods I shouldn't even look at. But over time, something inside me started to fade. I stopped cooking the meals I loved. I skipped breakfast. I looked at food like it was my enemy. You know that feeling when you do everything they tell you to, and nothing changes? That's where I was. Every morning I'd stand by the window of my small kitchen in Maine, staring at the frost covering the glass, wondering if this was just how the rest of my life would be. A slow decline hidden behind polite smiles. There was a heaviness I couldn't describe, not just in my chest but in my spirit. It's strange how invisible health problems can make you feel invisible yourself. My daughter would call to remind me about my doctor appointments. My son would send me articles about heart-healthy diets, and I would nod, thank them, and quietly ignore half of it. Because deep down, I had already accepted defeat. One night after dinner, boiled vegetables, dry chicken, and water, I sat alone at the table flipping through old photos. There I was at 50, laughing on the beach, holding a grilled burger and a cold beer. There I was at 60, hiking with my friends, sweat on my forehead but joy in my eyes. I looked at those pictures and whispered to myself, where did that man go? My doctor once told me, age doesn't just change your body, Edward. It changes how you see yourself. I didn't understand it back then. Now I do. You start to measure life in prescriptions instead of memories. My mornings had lost their meaning. The walks got shorter. My laughter, quieter. I didn't even realize how much I'd given up until one afternoon. I found myself avoiding the mirror because I didn't want to see that defeated man staring back. It wasn't just about cholesterol anymore. It was about feeling old, fragile, irrelevant. And you? Have you ever reached that point when you start to wonder if your body's decline is just a sign that it's too late to change? Because that's exactly how I felt. Then came the fear. The one that hides behind routine blood tests and polite medical warnings. Every time I'd open the envelope with my lab results, I'd hold my breath. Numbers, charts, percentages, all screaming what I already knew. I was losing the battle quietly. One evening, after another disappointing checkup, I sat in my recliner and turned off the TV. I remember the silence in that moment, heavy, like a fog. I thought about my father who died at 78 of a heart attack, and I wondered if that was the path I was on too. Maybe this is just the way it ends, I muttered to myself. That night, I slept poorly. My mind wandered to the small things I missed. Pancakes on Sundays, walks with my grandson, the way my wife used to look at me when I'd sneak butter onto my toast. I missed the man who didn't live in fear of his own body. And that was the hardest part. Not the pain, not the pills, but the quiet loss of joy. I remember the morning it finally hit me. I was making coffee, and my hands were trembling slightly as I reached for the cup. I spilled a few drops, and for some reason, that tiny moment broke me. I sat down holding that warm mug and tears just came. Not out of sadness exactly, but out of surrender. That's when I whispered, I'm tired. I've tried everything. Maybe it's too late for me, but life has a strange way of surprising us when we least expect it. And mine was about to change. Because of something so small, I almost laughed when I first heard about it. A seed. The morning after that quiet breakdown, I woke up to a strange kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy silence that follows resignation. The light coming through the curtains looked pale, like the world itself had lost some color. I remember sitting at the edge of the bed, waiting for my knees to stop aching before standing up. It wasn't pain that made me feel old. It was the hesitation before movement. That pause before you decide whether it's worth getting up at all. When I finally stood, I could hear the faint creak in my joints, a sound I used to ignore but had now become part of my mornings. My ankles, stiff. My shoulders, tense. Even my breath felt shorter, as if the air didn't travel as far as it used to. I shuffled toward the kitchen, holding onto the wall like it was an old friend. The kettle whistled faintly and I poured myself another cup of coffee. Black, no sugar, because sugar was one of the bad guys now. As I sipped, I looked out the window. Across the street, Mrs. Coleman was walking her dog, same as every morning. She's 82 and somehow still walks faster than me. I used to join her sometimes, but lately, I'd just watch from the window, pretending I was busy. Truth was, I couldn't keep up anymore. You see, aging doesn't arrive all at once, it sneaks in quietly. One day you're climbing ladders, fixing the roof, and the next you're out of breath just from tying your shoes. I remember trying to mow the lawn last spring. Halfway through, I felt my heart pounding like a drum. Sweat ran down my face, my arms felt weak, and for a moment I had to stop and sit on the porch steps. My neighbor waved at me from across the street. I waved back, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was scared. The fear wasn't of dying. It was of fading away, slowly, piece by piece. My daughter Claire came by that afternoon. She looked at the untouched lawn and said, "Dad, you should really take it easy. You don't have to do everything yourself." I smiled and nodded, but something in her voice stung. I didn't want to take it easy. I just wanted to feel capable again. Later that evening when she left, I sat in the quiet house surrounded by reminders of who I used to be. The books I no longer read, the guitar gathering dust in the corner, the running shoes under the bed that hadn't touched pavement in years. That's the quiet pain of aging. Not the joints, not the pills, not the wrinkles. It's the slow shrinking of your world. I began to avoid dinners with friends because I couldn't eat most of what was served. I stopped walking by the harbor because the salty air made me cough. I even turned down my grandson's invitation to go fishing because I didn't want him to see how tired I'd become. One night, I overheard my kids talking in the living room after I'd gone to bed. "He's slowing down, isn't he?" Claire whispered. "Yeah," her brother answered softly. "He's not the same since Mom passed." Their voices faded into the walls, but the words stayed. He's not the same. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly I'd changed, when I'd stopped being the strong one, the dependable one, the man who built everything with his hands. That night, I dreamed of my wife, Evelyn. She was in the kitchen, humming to the radio, stirring something on the stove. I walked up behind her and tried to reach for her hand, but she turned to me and said, "Take care of yourself, Ed. You still have time." When I woke up, there were tears on my pillow. I hadn't cried in years. The next morning, I took out my medical reports and spread them across the table. My cholesterol numbers were highlighted in red like a warning label. My doctor had written, "High LDL, risk increasing." I stared at those numbers for a long time. They weren't just numbers. They were proof that everything I'd done wasn't enough. The worst part wasn't the fear of heart disease. It was the feeling that my body was betraying me despite my efforts. I was tired of salads, tired of tasteless food, tired of living cautiously. Sometimes I wondered if the pills were even helping. My routine became mechanical. Wake up, take the pill, eat the same breakfast, check the same list, wait for the same results. It was as if my life had been reduced to maintenance. And yet, deep inside, there was still a flicker of hope. A tiny, stubborn voice that whispered, "Maybe there's something out there you haven't tried yet." But I pushed it away. I told myself not to be naive. After all, if doctors, diets, and discipline hadn't worked, what could possibly make a difference now? Still, the thought lingered. That evening, I went for a short walk. The air was cool, the sun sinking behind the trees. I felt each step echo through my legs. Somewhere between the mailbox and my driveway, my chest tightened slightly. Not enough to panic, but enough to remind me I wasn't invincible. I stood there for a while, hands on my knees, catching my breath, staring at the last bit of sunlight. And I thought, maybe this is what the end of the road looks like. Slow, quiet, and invisible. But life, as I was about to learn, has a way of sending you a lifeline when you least expect it. And mine came not from a doctor's office, but from something far simpler. A conversation, a cup of coffee, and a single seed that would change everything. It happened on a Tuesday. Funny how the days blend together when every morning feels the same. I woke up to the sound of rain tapping against the window, the kind of steady drizzle that makes you want to stay in bed. But I had promised my grandson Noah that I'd meet him at the park that afternoon. He's 8, full of life, and doesn't understand words like tired or cholesterol. I made myself a bowl of oatmeal, plain, flavorless, and stared at it for a long time before pushing it away. The truth was I had no appetite, not for food, not for the day ahead. Still, I went. When I arrived at the park, Noah was already there, his red jacket bright against the gray sky. He ran toward me, grinning, holding a kite in his hand. "Grandpa, the wind's perfect today, come on." I smiled, or at least tried to. We started walking toward the open field. I remember thinking how light he looked, how he ran as if gravity didn't apply to him. I wanted to feel that again, even for a moment. But halfway across the field, my chest tightened. A deep squeezing pressure like someone was slowly pressing a fist into my ribs. I stopped walking. Noah turned around. "Grandpa." I forced a smile. "Go on ahead, buddy. I'll be right there." But I wasn't. I stood there, watching him run, my breath shallow, my heart pounding against my shirt. I tried to hide it, one hand on my knee pretending to fix my shoe. The world felt smaller, darker, and in that moment a thought came to me, clear as the rain falling around us. Maybe this is it. Maybe my body was finally giving up. I looked at Noah laughing, his kite dancing in the sky, and a strange calm washed over me. Not fear, not even sadness, just surrender. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like fighting anymore. After a few minutes, the pressure eased. I straightened up, waved at him, and pretended everything was fine. But something inside me had cracked, a quiet realization that I wasn't who I used to be. That evening, I got home and sat in the dark living room without turning on the lights. The house felt heavier than usual. The ticking of the clock on the wall sounded louder, crueler. I took off my shoes and stared at my feet. My socks were damp from the rain, and I didn't even have the energy to change them. I leaned forward to pull them off, and froze halfway. My back ached, my legs trembled, and suddenly I realized I couldn't even bend without pain. Was this how it starts? I whispered to myself, losing one small thing at a time. I sat there for a long time, hands resting on my knees, feeling useless. Then came the thought, the one I'd been avoiding for months. Maybe it's time to stop trying. No one would blame me. My kids would say I lived a good life. My doctor would probably nod with quiet understanding. But inside, I felt hollow. Later that night, I went to bed without dinner. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, I thought about Evelyn again. How she used to scold me gently for skipping meals. "You can't pour from an empty cup, Ed," she used to say. I turned on my side, trying to ignore the ache in my chest and the ache in my soul. The next morning I woke up late. My body felt heavy, like it belonged to someone else. When I tried to stand, a sharp pain shot through my back. I reached for my socks and couldn't get them on. It was such a small thing, but it broke me. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding that single sock, tears running down my face. "Was this what getting old means?" I whispered. "Being defeated by your own body?" The image of Noah running in the park came back to me, so full of energy, so alive, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt that free. That day, I canceled my follow-up appointment. I told my doctor's office I was feeling fine. I wasn't. I just couldn't bear another conversation about cholesterol, risk, or numbers. Instead, I stayed home, watching the rain hit the window again. Hours passed. The daylight faded into gray. Somewhere in the quiet, I caught my reflection in the glass. A tired old man, eyes sunken, shoulders slumped. I barely recognized him. And for the first time, I said it out loud. Maybe I'm done. No one heard it, but it felt final. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I wished I could just fall asleep and not wake up. Not out of despair, but out of peace. The struggle, the pills, the numbers, the disappointment, it all felt endless. Then, from somewhere deep inside, a whisper. It doesn't have to end like this. I ignored it at first, but it kept coming back. Soft, persistent, like a heartbeat you can't silence. And that whisper would find its answer days later, in the most ordinary of places. A quiet cafe, a conversation I almost didn't have, and a question that would change everything. It had been months since I'd gone out just to be somewhere. Most of my outings were to pharmacies, doctor's offices, or grocery stores, places that smelled like antiseptic and quiet resignation. But that morning, out of nowhere, I got a call. "Ed, it's me, Frank. Frank Peterson. My old fishing buddy from high school. We hadn't talked in years. His voice still had that scratchy, cheerful rasp I remembered. "Haven't seen you around," he said. "You alive over there, or should I send flowers?" I laughed for the first time in weeks. "Barely, Frank, barely." He chuckled. "Come meet me at Joe's Cafe. You know, the one across from the library. 10 o'clock. Don't say no. I'm buying." I hesitated. I hadn't been to Joe's in ages. My instinct was to say no, to find an excuse to stay inside where it was safe and predictable. But something inside me, that small voice I'd been ignoring, whispered, "Go." So I did. The bell above the cafe door jingled as I stepped inside. The smell of fresh coffee and baked bread wrapped around me like a memory. The place hadn't changed. Same wooden booths, same faded photos on the wall, same waitress with the silver hair tied in a bun. Frank was already there, sitting by the window, waving like an excited kid. He looked older, of course, we both did, but there was color in his face, light in his eyes. He stood up and hugged me hard. "Well, look at you, still got that same stubborn expression." "And you still talk too loud," I said, smiling. We sat down, ordered 2 black coffees, and for a while, just talked. About old times, about the friends we'd lost, about the aches and the pills and the jokes we used to make about getting old. It felt good, real good, to laugh again. After a pause, Frank leaned back and said, "You still on that cholesterol roller coaster?" I sighed. "Yeah. It's a losing game, Frank. My numbers won't budge. I've tried everything short of fasting on a mountain." He nodded slowly, stirring his coffee. "I used to be just like that. Doctors wanted to double my meds. I felt like a walking pharmacy." I looked at him, surprised. You look great." He grinned. "Well, don't sound so shocked. I didn't find the fountain of youth, just a bag of seeds." I raised an eyebrow. "Seeds?" He chuckled. "Yeah, chia seeds. You know those tiny things people used to grow on clay animals back in the 80s? Turns out they're not just for novelty plants." I laughed. "Chia? You're telling me bird food saved your cholesterol?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. "I'm serious, Ed. I started putting a spoonful in my yogurt every morning, maybe a year ago. My numbers dropped like crazy. Doctor said my LDL went down, my energy went up. And get this, I didn't change a single pill." I frowned, skeptical. "Come on, Frank. 1 spoonful of seeds?" He shrugged. "I know it sounds nuts, but I swear by it. I read somewhere, Harvard or Stanford or one of those smart places, that chia is packed with omega-3s and fiber. Helps clean out the bad stuff." I stared at my coffee, stirring it slowly. Part of me wanted to dismiss it, laugh it off as another old man fad. But there was something about Frank, the way he looked, the ease in his voice, that made me listen. "You really think it works?" I asked. "Let me put it this way," he said, grinning. "Last year I couldn't climb my front steps without gasping. Now I'm back to fishing 3 times a week. You do the math." We both laughed, but his words stayed with me. As we talked, I noticed small things. The way his hands didn't tremble when he lifted his cup, how his skin had a warmth mine had lost. He wasn't selling me anything. He was just living proof that something had shifted. When we finished our coffee, Frank stood up, tossed a few bills on the table, and said, "You've got nothing to lose, Ed. Try it. 1 spoonful a day. Worst case, it does nothing. Best case, it gives you your spark back." As I walked home, the sky had cleared. The rain was gone, the air crisp and cool. I felt lighter somehow, not because I believed in the miracle of chia seeds, but because for the first time in months, someone had given me hope without pity. At home, I opened my pantry and found an old mason jar. I thought of Frank's grin in his words, 1 spoonful a day. That evening, I went to the grocery store and bought a small bag of chia seeds. The label said, "Rich in omega-3, fiber, and antioxidants." I stared at the bag in my cart for a long time, half expecting it to feel ridiculous, but it didn't. It felt possible. That night before bed, I added a spoonful of the tiny black seeds to a glass of water, just like Frank had shown me. They floated there, swelling slowly, turning the water cloudy. "You and me," I said quietly to the glass. "Let's see what you can do." It was such a small gesture, but after months of surrender, it felt like taking the first real step towards something again. The first morning after buying those chia seeds, I stood in the kitchen staring at the small bag like it might talk back to me. They didn't look like much, just tiny black dots, lighter than sand, no smell, no taste. But I could still hear Frank's voice echoing in my head. 1 spoonful a day, Ed. That's it. So I took a spoon, dropped it into a glass of water, and waited. The seeds began to float, then swell, forming little jelly-like bubbles around them. It looked strange, almost alive. I stirred, watched them spin slowly in the glass, and took a sip. The texture was odd at first, slippery but not unpleasant. I thought, well, this is how desperate I've become, talking to seeds before breakfast. Still, I drank the whole thing. That day passed quietly. Nothing happened. Of course it didn't. But somehow, I felt a little proud, like I'd done something for myself again, no matter how small. Over the next few days, I kept the habit. Every morning, same routine. Chia in water, sit by the window, watch the light creep across the kitchen table. By the 4th day, something shifted. Not in a dramatic movie-like way, but gently, almost imperceptibly. I realized I hadn't felt that heaviness in my stomach after breakfast. My digestion, which had always been sluggish, felt easier. That afternoon, I took a short walk, just down to the mailbox and back, but when I got home, I wasn't gasping for air. I even caught myself humming. "Don't get ahead of yourself," I muttered. "It's just coincidence." But coincidences kept happening. On the 7th day, I woke up before my alarm. I can't remember the last time that happened. Usually mornings felt like dragging a sack of sand uphill, but that day I opened my eyes and felt rested. Not young, not new, but rested. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't look defeated. The wrinkles were still there, the gray hair, the sagging skin, but my eyes seemed a little brighter. That morning, I decided to try something bold. I made pancakes. Whole grain, of course. Old habits die hard. I sprinkled a spoonful of chia into the batter, remembering something I'd read on the back of the package. A natural source of omega-3 and fiber for heart health. When I took that first bite, warm and slightly nutty, I smiled. It wasn't just breakfast. It was a small victory. A week later, I went to see my daughter, Claire. She opened the door, took one look at me, and frowned. "Dad, you look different." I laughed. "That bad, huh?" "No," she said, tilting her head. "You look awake. Did you start exercising again?" I almost told her about the Chia but stopped. Not yet. I wanted to be sure. That evening, I realized something else. The usual fatigue that crept in after dinner never came. I watched a movie without dozing off halfway through. Even my mind felt clearer. Like the fog that had settled in my thoughts was finally starting to lift. Each small change felt like a whisper of encouragement. My joints still ached, my cholesterol was still a mystery, but something inside me was moving again. Hope, maybe. On the 10th day, I ran into Frank at the grocery store. He saw me from across the aisle and grinned. "Well, look who's not dead yet." I laughed. "Don't start writing my obituary just yet." "So?" he asked, leaning on his cart. "How's it going with the seeds?" I hesitated, then smiled. "You know what? I think they're doing something. I can't explain it. It's not magic, but I feel lighter." He nodded. "That's how it starts, Ed. Give it time. You're feeding your body real stuff, things it actually knows how to use." That night, I sat by the window with my journal, something I hadn't touched in years, and wrote, "Day 10. I feel alive in small ways again." The next morning, I noticed I was whistling while making coffee. I can't remember the last time I'd done that either. 2 weeks in, the most surprising change wasn't physical, it was emotional. The hopelessness that had been sitting like a stone in my chest began to loosen. I found myself making plans again. Small ones, but still. Plans. I wanted to clean the porch, plant something in the garden, maybe even call my old friends. On the 15th day, as I watered the little patch of soil behind my house, I thought of Evelyn again. How she used to grow herbs in clay pots and laugh when I teased her about her magic plants. "Nature gives us what we need," she used to say. "We just have to listen." Standing there with dirt on my hands and Chia in my glass, I finally understood what she meant. I wasn't cured, not by a long shot, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a patient, I felt like a person. Maybe that's what healing really is. Not an overnight miracle, but the quiet return of purpose. It started with curiosity. After 2 weeks of small but undeniable changes, I wanted to understand why. Why did this tiny, tasteless seed make me feel different? Lighter, clearer, more alive. So one morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my old laptop, dusted off the keyboard, and typed into the search bar, "Chia seeds and cholesterol." What came up surprised me. There were pages of articles, not from shady blogs or miracle cure websites, but from real places. Harvard Health, Mayo Clinic, National Institutes of Health. I leaned closer, reading slowly, whispering the words out loud like a student again. Rich in omega-3 fatty acid, no. High in soluble fiber. May help lower LDL cholesterol and support heart health. That last line stopped me. Lower LDL cholesterol. The same thing I'd been fighting for over a decade. According to one Harvard review, the soluble fiber in chia can actually bind to cholesterol in the digestive system, carrying it out before it gets absorbed into the bloodstream. It wasn't a drug. It wasn't synthetic. It was just nature doing what nature has always done. Another study, this one from the University of Toronto, showed that people who consumed chia daily had a modest but steady reduction in their cholesterol levels within a few weeks. The researchers mentioned something about alpha-linolenic acid, an omega-3 compound that helps balance bad cholesterol, LDL, and increase the good kind, HDL. That phrase, modest but steady, hit me. It wasn't promising a miracle. It was promising progress. And after all I'd been through, progress sounded perfect. The more I read, the more amazed I became. Chia wasn't some new age fad. It had been used for centuries. The Aztecs called it running food because warriors carried it for endurance. 1 tablespoon could sustain them for hours. That night I told my daughter about it. "Dad, she said, smiling. "You're telling me you're researching superfoods now?" "Not superfoods," I replied. "Just food that knows what it's doing." She laughed, but I could tell she was intrigued. I explained how Chia's soluble fiber helps slow digestion, keeping blood sugar stable and cholesterol in check. How its antioxidants, flavonoids they called them, help protect the body from inflammation. How the omega-3s support heart health in ways even some medications can't replicate naturally. I paused, realizing how strange it felt to be excited about learning again. "It's funny," I said. "I spent years swallowing pills without ever asking why they worked. But the moment I eat something from the earth, I want to understand every detail." Claire smiled softly. "Maybe because this time, you're part of the process." That night, her words echoed in my head. Maybe that was it. For years I'd been treated, not involved. Every step of my health had been managed by others. But now I was doing something simple, tangible, mine. I began to experiment. I added chia to my oatmeal, sprinkled it over salads, even mixed it with lemon water. The texture grew on me, soft but substantial, like tiny reminders of effort. I kept reading too. I learned that chia seeds are one of the richest plant sources of omega-3, even more than some types of fish. They also contain calcium, magnesium, and protein, nutrients that strengthen the heart and bones, both of which had felt fragile for years. But beyond all the science, there was something poetic about it. This tiny seed, quiet, humble, unassuming, was doing inside my body what I'd stopped believing was possible. It was restoring balance. I remembered something Evelyn used to say when she cooked: "Food can be medicine if you listen to it." I never understood that before. To me, food was just fuel, something to get through the day. But now, as I stirred those black seeds into my morning yogurt, I began to see food differently. It wasn't just about nutrients or numbers. It was about respecting what the body understands. Somewhere along the way, we started trusting pills more than plants, formulas more than the soil that raised us. But standing there in my kitchen, spoon in hand, I realized the two didn't have to be enemies. Maybe the real secret wasn't choosing one over the other. It was remembering that healing often begins with something simple: a seed, a spoon, a choice to believe again. A few weeks later, I went in for my routine blood work. My doctor, the same man who'd been adjusting my medications for years, looked puzzled when he saw the results. "Your LDL is down," he said, flipping through the pages. "That's unusual. You haven't changed your medication, right?" I smiled. "Nope, just my breakfast." He looked up, curious. "What kind of breakfast?" "Chia seeds," I said, trying not to sound too proud. He blinked. Then, to my surprise, he grinned. "Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And for the first time in a very long time, I left that office feeling like the story wasn't over. Like maybe, just maybe, the next chapter of my life could still be written by me. It's strange how a single change can ripple quietly through the rest of your life. By the time I'd been taking chia seeds for a month, they weren't just part of my diet, they'd become part of my rhythm. Every morning began the same way. I'd wake up before the alarm, open the curtains and let the sunlight fill the room. Then I'd head to the kitchen, pour a glass of water, and drop in a spoonful of chia. Watching the seeds bloom had become almost meditative, like witnessing patience itself. I'd sit by the window as they thickened, the world still soft and quiet around me, and think, maybe this is what healing looks like. Slow, silent, steady. It wasn't about the seed anymore. It was about showing up for myself. Soon, other habits began to fall into place. I started walking again, first to the end of the block, then around the park. My joints still creaked, but the stiffness faded faster. Some mornings I even waved to Mrs. Coleman and her dog again, and she'd laugh, "Look who decided to rejoin the living." I'd grin back, out of breath but proud. One afternoon, I found my old radio in the garage, I wiped off the dust, turned the dial, and there it was, the same old station Evelyn used to listen to. The soft hum of jazz filled the house. I made tea, stirred in my spoon of Chia, and for a brief moment I could almost feel her presence again. "See, Evelyn?" I whispered. "You were right about food." That evening I cooked for myself, not out of duty, but out of joy. A simple meal: grilled salmon, brown rice, and a salad sprinkled with chia and lemon. The taste was rich, clean, alive. After dinner I stepped outside. The air smelled of spring, damp soil, fresh grass, the faint sweetness of lilac. I stood there for a long time, breathing deeply. The chest tightness that used to visit me like a shadow was gone. And with that breath came something I hadn't felt in years: peace. The following week, Claire dropped by with Noah. The moment they stepped inside, Noah ran to the kitchen. "Grandpa, you're walking faster," I laughed. "I've got new fuel in the tank, kid." Claire smiled, studying me closely. "You look happy," she said. "I think I am," I replied simply. We spent that afternoon baking. I let Noah sprinkle chia into the muffin batter, and he giggled at how the seeds looked like tiny dots. "They're like little superpowers," I told him. "Can I have superpowers too?" he asked. "You already do," I said, smiling. "You're young, but it doesn't hurt to add a few more." We laughed, and for the first time in so long my house felt alive again, full of voices, warmth, and something that had been missing: connection. That night, after they left, I cleaned the kitchen slowly, humming to myself. When I finished, I sat down with my journal again. Day 32. I feel like myself again. Not the old me, a gentler, wiser one who listens to his body instead of fighting it. I looked at that line for a long time. Then I wrote another. The small things we do every day, and they shape the years we have left. And it's true. The seed didn't just lower my cholesterol. It reminded me that discipline can be tender, that care can be quiet, that growth doesn't always make noise. As weeks turned into months, my new routine became second nature. I started sleeping better. My skin looked clearer. Even my doctor noticed my blood pressure improving. But the most meaningful change wasn't in the numbers. It was in how I felt. I was no longer surviving my days. I was living them again. One Sunday morning, while walking through the park, I stopped by a bench overlooking the pond. The sun was bright, the air cool, and for the first time in years I sat without feeling restless. A young couple walked by, laughing, their little girl running ahead with a red balloon. I smiled at the sight and thought of something Frank had said during one of our coffee catch-ups. We don't stop living because we get old. We get old because we stop living. I took another slow breath and whispered, "Not me. Not anymore." That evening I called Frank just to thank him again. "You were right, my friend," I said. "About what?" "That it's never too late to feel new again." He chuckled. "Don't thank me. Thank the seed." But I knew better. The chia was just the beginning. The real healing came from choosing to believe that change was still possible. The seed had only reminded me how. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I started adding that single spoonful of chia to my mornings. Sometimes when I look back, it's hard to believe that such a small act, something so ordinary, could lead to such a quiet transformation. These days, my life feels lighter in every sense of the word. My body moves with more ease. My mind feels clearer. My spirit, steadier. The other morning, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Same gray hair, same lines on my face. But something was different. My posture, my eyes, the calm that lingered there. I realized, I like this version of me. Not the man who chased youth. Not the man who fought against time. But the man who finally learned to walk alongside it. It's funny. For so many years, I lived in fear of my body. Fear of bad news. Fear of numbers printed in red ink. Fear of growing old. But now I see that fear was the real sickness. It kept me small, careful, disconnected. The body isn't the enemy. It's a companion, one that never stops trying, even when we stop listening. A few weeks ago, Claire and Noah invited me to the park again, the same park where I once couldn't make it across the field. The memory of that day, the pressure in my chest, the shame in my heart, still haunted me a little. But I went anyway. Noah brought his kite, same red one, still frayed at the edges. "Ready, Grandpa?" he said, grinning. "Let's see if I remember how," I told him. The wind picked up, cool and steady. I started walking, then jogging, the string in my hand. My knees protested at first, but my steps grew stronger, my lungs filling with the crisp air. The kite lifted, dancing in the sky, and for the first time in years, so did I. Noah shouted, laughing. Claire clapped from the bench, and I just kept running, my heart not pounding in fear but in joy. When the kite soared higher, I stopped and tilted my face to the sky. I could feel the warmth of the sun, the wind brushing against my skin, the blood pulsing strong and even. I whispered, "I made it." Not to the park, not to lower cholesterol levels, but to this moment, this peace I thought I'd lost forever. Afterward, we sat on the grass, catching our breath. Claire handed me a bottle of water and smiled. "You've changed, Dad." I nodded. "I think I finally started living for real." She looked at me curiously. "What do you mean?" I thought about it for a moment, then said, "For years, I waited for someone else to fix me. Doctors, pills, numbers on a page. But maybe healing starts when we decide we're worth the effort again." She smiled, eyes glistening. "Mom would have loved to hear that." "I think she already knows," I said softly. That night after they dropped me off, I sat on the porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. The light turned everything gold. The same world that once felt heavy now shimmered with life. Ordinary, imperfect, beautiful life. I thought about Frank, about Evelyn, about all the quiet moments that had led me here. The late nights of doubt, the mornings of discipline, the laughter returning, one spoonful at a time. Healing, I realized, isn't a finish line. It's a companionship between your body and your will. And the reward isn't perfection. It's participation. As I sat there, a thought came to me, gentle but clear. Today, I am not afraid of getting older. I let the words settle in my chest. They felt true. Age hadn't taken my strength. Fear had. And now, I was taking it back. I still take my Chia every morning, still walk the park, still laugh with my grandson. My numbers are better, my doctor is happy. But more than that, I am happy. Not because everything's perfect, but because I finally learned to honor progress instead of chasing miracles. If you had told me a year ago that a seed, a tiny, quiet seed, would help me rediscover joy, I would have laughed. But now I know it wasn't just the seed, it was what it symbolized, a choice to keep trying. And maybe that's the lesson I want to leave you with. If you're listening to this and you're tired of pills, tired of promises, tired of watching yourself fade, I want you to know something. It's not too late. Your story isn't finished. Your body hasn't given up. Sometimes it just needs a little reminder of what it's capable of. So start small. A walk, a new habit, a spoonful of something natural. Don't wait for a miracle. Create the conditions for one. And maybe, just maybe, one day you'll look in the mirror like I did and say, I like this version of me. Because it's never about going back. It's about moving forward, lighter, calmer, alive. So tell me, have you ever found something simple that changed your life in ways you didn't expect? Share it, because your story might be the one that gives someone else hope. And if my story spoke to you, pass it on. Maybe someone out there staring at their own reflection needs to hear that it's not too late to start again.